On today's episode, I have Sarah Flynn. She is a divine feminine awakening guide and mentor. She spent the first 28 years of her life mainly living in her masculine energy. She was in an 11-year relationship that she knew didn't really serve her. She was in a career that didn't really fulfill her, and she just felt like there was something missing in her life. I feel like we've all been there at one point in our lives. So on this episode, we talk about her path for awakening to her feminine energy, how she helps other women awaken to their own. We also talk about the characteristics of the light and the dark sides of the feminine, because no, it's not all just nurturing love and light. There's also a dark side of the feminine that's been suppressed, which is often associated with the sexuality, the sensuality. We also touch upon how to harmonize both the masculine and the feminine, because we have both. It's the balance of the yin and the yang. It's not about disowning one versus the other. It's about embodying both. So enjoy this really fruitful discussion. I want to start off with your story. I was looking at your website and you wrote something that I had never seen before, which was that you had a divine feminine awakening. I've never heard that terminology. So in 2017, tell us what happened before the awakening and after. What was that like?
Oh, I love this so much. So 2017 and before, I always say now in a past life, because it feels like a long, long time ago. I was actually working as a building surveyor as my career choice. You know, you finish school, you have to pick a subject. And I was in this relationship that I was in for a long time. And I don't know, I found myself in this space where I was in a very masculine role in terms
Mm,
of career. I was surrounded by men all of the time. I felt way more comfortable being around men, truth be told. And even though I did have female friendships, I didn't how can I say it? Like I didn't feel like I valued them properly. I just kind of started to question what is going on? Why have I chosen this role? Something feels like it's missing. I guess I didn't really have that connection with women that I
mm,
that I craved. But I didn't know that I craved it. This is the thing. It was more just like something's missing. I'm in this very masculine dominated industry. I'm in this very masculine dominated role. I was playing so small in this long
mm,
term relationship that I was in that wasn't necessarily a healthy, supportive, loving relationship. It was something that I was very trapped and small within. And so I just began to ask the questions like, what is it that's missing? What am I not seeing that I need to see? And I guess, that's kind of when I started to meditate, pray. I didn't really know who I was praying to, and I believed in God, a God, universe, but I didn't really know. And I hadn't prior to that, actually asked for help from
right.
a source outside of me like that before. And so yeah, I guess through meditation and prayer and just one day during meditation, I kind of like had this visual where like I zoomed all the way out
Mm,
and it literally happened within 10 seconds. So it was kind of like over as soon as it had happened. But you know where you receive so much insight in such a short space of time
oh yeah.
that in that moment I had complete clarity on my whole life and all of
Wow.
the decisions that I'd made and actually how everything up until that point had been the perfect story for me to now step into this role.
Mm,
I'll give you insight onto what that was. I kind of zoomed out and realized that I was living in this very disempowered, wounded feminine state. And that a lot of my decisions had been made from a place of fear and pain.
mm,
So I remembered specifically having made a decision when I was about 7 or 8 years old that I looked at my mum and she was a housewife raising 4 kids and she did an incredible job, but nobody in society valued her from what I could see. And actually, other women were quite rude and mean to her all of the time for being in that role. So I remember deciding when I was younger, well, no one values
mm,
women in that role. I didn't see any value in it. I didn't see any respect for a woman nurturing her kids and nurturing the community and being the center of a home. And so I made this decision when I was about 7 or 8 that if I was going to succeed in this world, if I was going to have respect from other people, I decided I had to be more like my dad.
mm,
And one decision then went on to shape the
Ooh.
next, however, 20 years of my life. Because me desiring then I have to be more like my dad made me go into the world of construction. It made me get the career that I would feel valued in, that I would be respected for. But it took me further away from what my natural inner self or inner spirit, whatever you want to call it, actually has the most joy in doing. I've
Mm.
learned so much along the way that I am here to nurture community, that I do want to invest time and be at the center of a home and the center of a family and the center of a community. But I couldn't see none of that then. So I was going further and further and further and further away from my truth to be accepted by others. On top of that, the relationship that I was in, which I said, obviously the dynamics were not completely healthy in that. I found myself completely disempowered and trapped within that, almost feeling like I was living in somebody else's shadow and like I
Mm.
had no value to bring
Mm.
of my own, and that I couldn't stand alone and be my own,
Mhm.
whatever, just bring my own value to the table. So all of this was going on. And in that one realization, I realized, it kind of zoomed out and was like, you did this because of this. You learned this from your mum. She learned this from her mum. Kind of like just like the domino
Yeah.
effect, like opened all the way up. And I was like, wow, I come from a lineage of women who've chosen this or fallen into this story. And I kind of realized in that moment, it was like, it was my job and my role and my responsibility to break the cycle.
Wow.
It gave me that clarity. It was like, you're here in this disempowered state because of this, but it's also now your role and responsibility to change the narrative going forwards. And
Yeah.
your life will be the message to other women. What you learn from here, you will go forwards and share this with other women. And then in that moment, I seen myself running circles, hosting events, speaking in front of audiences of people, and where you're like, no way.
You didn't believe it?
But it gave me everything I needed and more. And after that one vision of like, or moment of clarity, let's say, I then had the strength to leave that relationship, walk away from absolutely every part of that identity that I had been living in prior, and rediscover myself again.
Wow, that's scary. Was there any resistance after having that epiphany and actually taking the steps to like, okay, leaving this person, leaving the job, etc.?
Yes. So I'd kind of already broken away from the career at this point. So that was easy. But when it come to the relationship, 100%, like I was in that for 11 years. So our lives were very interconnected. Our families were very interconnected. I knew when I leave this, everything changes for everyone,
Mm.
not just me. I impact the whole, both sides. I knew enough by then to know that there was no going back. And so what I began to do was pray for strength to do it, because I
Yeah,
didn't feel like little human me on my own could do it.
yeah.
And it didn't take long for that strength to come through. I honestly, like, when you ask, when you begin to intentionally ask, and I remember specifically in like, if there is a God, please give me the strength to get up and do this.
Mm.
And it one day I just was, it wasn't long after, packed all of my things and left.
Yeah, yeah, that's powerful and inspiring that you were able to do that in an
Mm,
11-year relationship. A whole life.
yeah, it definitely wasn't easy. I remember getting home. I lived in Spain at the time, you see. So the day that I got up, packed my things, and got on the flight back to the UK, felt like an out of body experience. It
Mm.
almost felt like it was someone else doing it, not me. Once I got home, like, and the realization set in of what I'd just done, oof, there was a lot. There was a lot to
Yeah,
go through.
purging probably.
Yeah, self-doubt, confusion, have I done
Mm.
the right thing? But, like, it was done. It was done then, so I just had to ride it out.
Right. And then flash forward X amount of months or weeks, however long it took. What was the actual embracing of your feminine looking like? What did that look like?
You know what it looked like? It looked like surrounding myself with women for the first time, seeing the value that women bring through a whole new lens. I hadn't been able to see that since I was young because I put a block on that when I was like 7 or 8. I immediately knew that when I got home, I didn't know I had no idea how the business side of things was going to transpire. But one thing I knew for certain was sisterhood was the medicine I needed.
Mm.
And so I just started to host free coffee meetups
Oh, wow.
and do Facebook lives and be like, hey, I feel like I'm on this journey of self-discovery. I'm into, this and that. And like, I'm doing this coffee meetup this week and it's free to attend. Like, if I basically was saying things like, if you're a girl who feels like she wants to live with more purpose, if there's a dream or there's a desire that you really want to fulfill and you don't know how to make it happen, like same. So
Wow.
come join me and let's link up and let's see where this leads. And it was really that gave me the energy, the confidence, the healing, the everything to put one foot in front of the other and keep moving forwards.
Oh, that's very authentic of you to say like, "Hey, I'm going through this and I need friends to talk about it with."
Yeah.
Wow. Very
Yeah.
vulnerable
They
too.
showed up.
I'm sure.
And these friends became my clients who then paid me for coaching and came to my events and then
Wow.
came to my retreats, and some of them are still in my life today, and some of them are actually in different countries now living out the exact dream that we spoke about when we first ever met. So
Wow.
although I don't have a consistent communication with them anymore, they're living out the desire that they wanted from that moment. And I've been able
Wow.
to witness all of that unfold.
Oh my god, because you did it first so you could help them with it.
Honestly, it's incredible.
I wanna zoom out a little bit because this topic of feminine energy is, for me anyway, it's been in my orbit a lot. Like, there's a lot of women who are very interested in this topic. So how would you describe feminine energy? Like, what is that anyway?
Okay. So for me, I believe we all embody different, let's say, flavors of
Yeah.
feminine energy. For me personally, I know that I like to embody like my light, playful, feminine energy, and that transpires in my circles and in my community and in my offerings. I feel very comfortable sharing just like the light, magical, playful tones of the feminine,
Mhm.
creativity, stuff like that, softness, surrender, relaxation, nurture, almost like just those homely vibes where like you receive a hug, you know?
Aw, yeah.
And I love nurturing people in that way. But the feminine is not just that. Like the feminine is not just softness and play and creativity and nurture and beauty. There's also a dark flavor of like the feminine, dark undertones. And it's this part of the feminine that has been most suppressed over the years because that's in direct relation to our sexuality, our sensuality, not just that, but the energy that we can use to destruct.
Mm,
Things,
mm.
not just create, but the opposite. We have the power to like, blow shit up and like,
Agreed.
metaphorically speaking, or
Yeah.
like just shatter illusions
Mm. Oh,
in
yeah.
society and in people and stand up for what's not ethically right and
Yeah.
bring age to the table and all of the things. So the feminine is both light and dark. We all have the capacity to express and embody both. From what I see in women, like some of us just embody more of one than the other, and that's fine. Like that's who we
Mm.
be. That's the medicine or the magic that we're here to share. But we do have the capacity to play in both.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I know that on the flip side of that is the masculine energy. And so would you say that I guess you were more in your masculine before your feminine awakening?
Yeah, I would say it's a difficult one because yeah, I was very much in my logic. I didn't trust my intuition. I wasn't trusting my gut,
Mm.
all of those things. I was being very practical. Everything had to make sense before like I took a leap. And the feminine definitely isn't that. The feminine is, trusting the gut, moving and making space before it makes sense to. So yeah, I was
Mhm.
definitely my masculine more in that regard, but I was also super just in my wound of feminine. I was being a victim to my life circumstances rather than creating my own luck
Mm.
and joy. And I was being very passive and too flowy and not forthcoming enough as well. So there was both things going on.
Oh, I get it now. What would it look like